The municipal election frenzy in Ontario will soon culminate to the D-Day on the 25th of October. In our attempt to highlight some of the South Asian candidates who've been promising and leading with significant margins, we've presented many candidates over the past little while. Today, we present to you Mohamed Dhanani, candidate for Ward 26, Toronto. Hello and welcome to a segment on politics on CMRTV. In today's segment, we're going to be talking to a city council or councillor candidate from Don Valley West. Now, this man is of a South Asian origin and seems to be putting up a tough fight against the incumbent. He is Mohamed Dhanani and has made some news in some of Toronto's newspapers already, and it's our pleasure to have him in the studio. Welcome to the show, Mohamed.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, I guess I should start off by congratulating you on getting picked as one of the 6 top candidates that Toronto Star is looking at this time around for the municipal election.
Absolutely.
How did you manage to get in there?
Well, you know what? The Toronto Star does extensive coverage of the Toronto City Council race. Mm-hmm. Their primary focus and concern is how the City of Toronto does. Mm-hmm. And they're really closely watching all 44 races. And they pay attention to the platforms, the candidates, our backgrounds. They come out to the debates. They interview us. And after a careful analysis, they want to see what councillors will be great for their ward, mm-hmm. but also for the City of Toronto. So I think they looked at my academic background, my work experience, the platform I'm running on, and based on all of that, they said I'm one of the 6 who can really shake up City Hall.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a lot of fight for city council seats this time around, unlike in the past. Every ward seems to have more than 5-6 people running for the same position.
Yeah.
What's the case in your ward? How many people are running?
Yeah, in our ward there's 7 people running, and I think you can really sense a frustration in the city, especially compared to 2006. There was more optimism at that time. There's much more cynicism. And I think people want to see a strong city council. And at city council, the mayor has 1 vote and the councillor has 1 vote. Mm-hmm. So if we have a new mayor and the same old councillors, nothing's going to change in the City of Toronto.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm to make sure we see some fresh new faces down at City Hall, mm-hmm. who can bring some new ideas to the city, who can reflect, broader constituency, and bring some creativity to the work that needs to be done.
Change is inevitable, and change is just what is required in Toronto, I suppose, from all of these people trying to run for a seat and trying to make a difference. Yeah. Now, you're a rookie politician going into this municipal election.
Yeah.
What are some of your visions for the City of Toronto as a whole?
As a whole, for the City of Toronto, there's 3 things that I believe are priorities. The first one is public transit. We haven't had a significant investment in public transit in over 2 decades. We have to get the Eglinton LRT built, and I'm also going to be advocating for the Don Mills LRT. Mm-hmm. But we've got to get the city moving. We have the worst congestion of any major city in the Western world, and it's costing our economy billions of dollars. So public transit is 1. Number 2, job creation. Economic development has to be a number 1 priority for the City of Toronto. Over the last 15 years, the number of jobs in the city have continued to decline. And what that does is it erodes the commercial tax base in the city, and it puts much more pressure on property taxes to pay for services that property taxes aren't meant to pay for. Mm-hmm. And then the third is I think we need to improve access to recreation service for young people and seniors across the city, especially in Ward 26.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk a little bit about Ward 26 itself. What's the makeup of Ward 26?
Ward 26 is one of the most diverse wards in the city. Ethnically, it's about 70% visible minorities. A third of that group are South Asians. And socioeconomically, it's also a very diverse ward, because on one side we have Flemington Park, which is one of the high priority neighborhoods of the city. And on the other side we have Leaside, which now a detached house is over $1 million. Mm-hmm. And so, we've got very distinct neighborhoods with different needs. And we need a counselor who can work effectively with each of those communities and advance their issues. I happen to speak the top 3 languages spoken in the ward. So I speak English, I speak Urdu, and I speak Gujarati. So I think it helps to be able to connect with the constituents when you can speak in some of their languages.
Right, absolutely. Well, if you're a politician representing a certain riding or ward, you need to connect with the communities and get their support.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Generally in the past, people don't get out and vote for municipal elections.
Yeah.
Right. Are you campaigning people to get out and vote in the first place, let alone voting for you? This is a question I'm asking because there seems to be a lot of momentum about this municipal election, but we're all yet to see how many people are going to get out and actually cast their ballots.
Yeah. You know, the city on a day-to-day basis impacts people's lives much more so than provincial and federal government. I think many people find it difficult to vote in a municipal election because after a while, many candidates are speaking about the same issues, whether it's transit and safety and parks and recreation. In the provincial and federal, they know here's the party that I support. The decision is more easier. And I think when the decision is easier, more people come out and vote. There's also a lot more TV advertising and radio advertising provincially and federally, so there's much greater awareness. Now what we've been doing is we've knocked over 20,000 doors all across that ward. I've personally knocked on those doors. And what we're doing is we're registering people who are committed to voting for me. And our strategy is going to rely on election day having 150 or 200 volunteers coming out, helping with the campaign, and making sure we get all of those people who've committed to vote for me out to vote. That's going to be critical.
If you were a resident of that ward and you were not running for politics, running for this office, how would you pick who to vote for?
That's a great question. So I think there's several different criteria I would look at. One is I would look at the qualifications of this individual. It's a job to be a city councillor. So what's this person's academic background? What have they studied? Do they have a university degree? 2, I would look at what's their work experience been? Has it been relevant? So, I've worked as a senior advisor to the Deputy Premier of Ontario. I've worked in government. I've run my own business, a pharmacy. I've worked at Price Waterhouse in an accounting firm, so I understand how to read financial statements. So you want to look at, does the person have relevant work experience? And 3, what's the person's commitment to the community been? So I moved to Toronto in 1987. The first place I lived was in Flemington Park. I've been on the board of the Flemington Food Bank for 4 years now, so I've been committed to the community. And a lot of my life, whether it's going to restaurants or where I get my hair cut or where I go to the bank is all within the ward. So does a person understand what's happening in the community? And lastly, I think in a city like Toronto where we have 52% visible minorities, out of 44 council members, we only have 4 visible minorities. There's not even one South Asian in a city that has 700,000 South Asians. So as a voter, if I had a qualified candidate who could also represent a broader constituency and bring a broader voice to the table, I would support that candidate.
Now I know you've been a political activist in the past, and you worked with provincial politicians. When you go into the city council as elected councillor, how are you going to represent diversity there? How are you going to, what are you going to bring in with you that's going to make a difference in the city council?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, having an understanding of some of the various cultures, religions, you start looking at issues from a different perspective. So let's say, for example, we're looking at recreational services. Well, how do they meet the different needs? If you're looking at, should we be advocating for an ice rink or a soccer field or a cricket field? Kind of having an understanding that, different communities are involved in different kinds of sports. I have young people coming to tell me, hey, we've got a great field in our community, but there's no soccer nets, and this is a whole community that plays soccer. So I think an appreciation for some of the interests of some of the different cultural groups. I think it's, the other part of it is you, at the city level, you really are working close with the grassroots. So do the constituents living in that neighborhood feel comfortable approaching you? You know, when you can speak in their language, or, you know, you can understand kind of maybe the religion they practice or the culture they belong to. There's more comfort for them to approach you, and I think that's an important part. If we want to have different people's voices at City Hall, the councillors have to be approachable, and the constituents have to feel that their voice can be shared and then advocated for at City Hall. So I think it's several different dimensions.
How does it look like, your campaign thus far?
Yeah. Well, we're cautiously optimistic, and you know, we don't have too many South Asians and people from too many different cultures in politics. So I think when we do, it gives young people the idea that there's other avenues that we can follow. There's other things, professions that we can follow. You know, it's great to have doctors and engineers and lawyers, and I'm all for those fields. But there's also other fields that we need representation in, the media and politics. So we just get a broader array of voices. The Conference Board of Canada, now here's the organization that represents businesses, and they've done research and studies where they're showing that on the board of directors, where there's more cultural diversity, those organizations are much more competitive. Now, they're interested in profits, the bottom line, and what's going to create the best kind of organization. And they're starting to realize that. So imagine the City of Toronto is governed by councillors. And if we have more diversity at that group, according to the Conference Board of Canada, we're going to have a much more competitive government, which is competing against other cities.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for this discussion, but you've got some great views on how the city should be, and you've got some great culture and experience going into this thing. So all the best to you, and hopefully we'll sit down with you as Councillor Mohamed Dhanani really soon.
Wonderful. I really appreciate that, and I look forward to doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's it for this segment on politics. We'll see you again. Thanks for watching.